Hi guys, thank you all for coming. My name is Alyssa Johnson and I am the president of the Coalition of Organizational Leadership here on campus. We work to bring together students and faculty to build larger events and to connect the community and faculty and all the students together. Earthweek this year is focusing on diversity and natural resources. Dr. Shiba Kar has employed this in every aspect of his work by working with a variety of international organizations where he is focused on natural resources, sustainability, and community development. In addition, his educational practices and teaching introduces students to a wide range of current topics and issues concerning energy policy and natural resources sustainability. Dr. Carr earned his PhD in Forest Resources from Pennsylvania State University and his master's in Environmental Management and Development from the Australian National University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shiba Kar.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. So let me just sit here. Okay. শুভ সন্ধ্যা আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ আমার এই লেকচারে আসার জন্য Good evening everyone, thanks for being here and glad to see you here and thanks for your attendance. So I'm Shiba Kar. I just spoke that language. Anybody can guess what language it is? Bengali. Bengali, right. Good. So Bengali is actually a seventh most spoken language in the world. So 210 plus million people speak in that language, but you don't hear much of this because it is much more focused on in one of this region in eastern part of India and Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is a place where I grew up. So today I'm gonna tell some stories about my growing up and how I got inspired about from my surroundings, how I got inspired about all these natural resource issues and how I transitioned from there to here and where I am at now. Okay, so but I think Noe set up some nice background. I mean for this my session, so I think I can try. I'll try to connect some of those. Well, I just try to my talk as caring for Mother Earth. So this is how I kind of grew up about my passion, my you know outdoors and playing in the outdoors as always. So some of those things I'll kind of try to highlight on that. Well, and thank you very much, Rob, for inviting me to this talk. And then I was asking him, so what should I focus on, or for all the speakers? So maybe so some of these, you know, kind of outline things that I'll try to touch on. So I'll initially just try to kind of talk about me a little bit, and then why biodiversity is important in my work and what I do, and also the what inspired me. That's a big thing, and telling my story in that part, and then why it is important to have the diversity in the natural resource field. So I'll try to kind of focus on that and some of these barriers and challenges that I faced when I was kind of growing up and when and even where I'm at now, and as a kind of a person not in a very homogeneous group. So I mean the barriers and challenges that I face, I'll try to touch on that. Okay, what I do, I kind of teach courses more on the sustainable energy policy and technology aspects, and also courses on climate change and policy solutions. So that's kind of and my research and my extension work. So I have actually joined appointment with the UW Extension. So I do some of this work with the communities and on the community energy initiatives, and bioenergy is another my research area and of interest, and also through the climate change and adaptation planning and land use planning. Some of those that's my another interest area. So in all of these aspects, as we talk about the sustainable energy, the climate change solutions and policy, diversity is a crucial part in it, and why I'll touch on some of those in little later. And certainly also in the research and extension, in the extension folks that you are familiar with in the, working with the communities, or you see the ag agents or other specialists, you don't see many people from the other colors in the extension aspect. So being a person from another color, it is certainly challenging things. So, but I try to just make some of those effort to be representative from those aspects and to to keep the ball rolling in that. So just briefly, why it is important in my work, what I do in the extension, my research and my teaching. I feel certainly the diversity, it enhances our problem-solving capacity. It certainly, makes better, help us to make the better decisions, and certainly it helps in the, productivity and the new ideas, innovation. So whether we are trying to solve this energy problem or the climate change solutions, or whether we are trying to take the community energy initiatives or do a better planning for the communities, certainly this, the diverse ideas, the diverse technology, the diverse participation from the diverse group of people, that would only give us a better solutions. If we just rely on a homogeneous group, only from a similar kind of ideas, that solutions may not be long lasting. That wouldn't make us a resilient community. So that's why I feel it is certainly important aspects into the natural resource field, into some of these aspects that what I focus on. Okay, so next portion is what inspired me. So here my story begins. So I was born and brought up in Bangladesh, and this is the Dhaka, and Chittagong is the second largest city. Dhaka is the capital. So by the Bay of Bengal, the part of the Indian Ocean. So that's where I grew up, and a quarter mile from this that ocean, right? So my childhood just I jumped on the water always with and so played with the waves and boats and all. So that's how I grew up. And one thing you see, so Nepal is here. This is the Himalaya. So this is the kind of a very flat, very low-lying country, right? And you may know that for the climate change, this country is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world because it is very close to the sea level. And sea level rise, as we know, even with the predictions that we have with the 2 degrees Celsius, 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, the prediction, if it is right, almost 1/5 of the country land. So many of this area would go underwater. Okay, and here, this is one of the big chunk of the mangrove forest area in the world, and it is a UNESCO natural resource site because it's the continuous big chunk of the mangrove forest in the world that we'll be losing if the inundation is happening in that regard. So some of those things stuck in my mind as I grew up. Growing up in Bangladesh, suddenly didn't have many of these resources, right? And I'll come back here later. Let me finish this here, another thing. So schooling, after schooling, we used to have a lot of time for the outdoors, right? Elementary level, maybe till class grade 2, we had like 2 hours schooling, and then the rest of the time we explored in the nature. Most of our time was in a tropical, semi-tropical region. Most of the time you could be outside, friends, families, we just enjoyed. We explored. We explored in the water, we explored in the woods, and we tasted the water, the soil, and all these things. So that was kind of our childhood. So that kind of gave me that fascination about the nature and attachment with the nature. And that's how probably I got that passion about the nature. Okay, so the other things, what I observed growing up in Bangladesh was some of these traditional ecological practices, historical practices, the knowledge that people had, right? So how many of you are familiar with the holy basil, the tulsi, in the regionally called, right? it's a sacred plant because of its very, medicinal values that it has, multiple medicinal values. And people, thousands of years, people have been using this for, household kind of a remedy for coughing, for, it's a kind of antiseptic. If you got a cut, if you, some of these leaves, if you just smash them and put that, the blood will stop. So that kind of, so many of these medicinal values, they kind of, people would, have that around their household always. Okay, and these are mosquito repellent too, right? So some of this, so you will find that, as a kind of a natural living, and also some, the medicine that in hand, just if kids got hurt, they will use some of those. So using those and planting those around the household is a common practice. And the other thing is the neem. How many of you have heard of neem? Yeah. So neem is another very good medicinal trees. And the leaves, it's a kind of bittery taste, but it's very good for skin. And it has for the digestion, for skin, and some of the neem oil are being used for, as kind of a more natural version of the, insect repellent and things in the agriculture. So multiple uses. If you are interested, if you search up just neem or tulsi or the holy basil, so lots of benefits. So I saw some of these around the household, and people have been using this. People have been admiring this, and living with the nature basically. So and the other thing is that in terms of the energy, I mean, it's a tropical region. You don't have to be worried about the heating the house, right? So, and the strategy was better utilize the sunlight, right? And before it gets too hot. So people would wake up early in the morning, like 5 o'clock, right? When it is bright outside, they will start, and a cooler environment, very nice. In the tropical region, the best time to enjoy is the morning breeze. If you have, happen to go anywhere, try out that. I mean, it's amazing. Soothing kind of breeze. It's amazing. So people start their work at that time. So they try to use as less energy as possible. So be more environment friendly in that regard. And certainly they have many of these connections with the spirituality, with the health, with the plant. They have the admiration with the plant. So some of those, as a boy, growing up, I saw many of these things that gave me that passion and that admiration about the nature. Many other things I saw also, like in terms of the connections of our mother or the aunts, or the other women. How do they take care of their surrounding environment in the household level? They've been, they'll have this local food available just in case. If they cannot get to the market, you have some sort of vegetables around. If you just make a trip around the household, you can get some of this, for one-time cooking, you get enough of this around. And they would maintain that, nurture that. And so they will kind of also, some of the non-timber forest products, like some of this wild mushrooms or the bamboo shoots or some other kind of things, they will kind of maintain those around. They know that those are the safety net, just in case there is some of the people who didn't have enough income or the wages, they can get there and then they can feed the family. So they kind of maintain some of those things. And this I emphasize a lot. Now I've been in US for a long time now. But some of these things I kind of admire still in the back home. The connections, the social capital that they depend on, the care for community members, each other. They share the labor, they share the food, they share the resources. That's what we are lacking gradually here. We are becoming much more individualistic. We are looking for more, the nuclear kind of family. We just like our own privacy, own resources, own cars, and all this, right? So, but here is like more shared resources kind of things. And for the water as well, some of the river, like one of the biggest ones, the Ganges, is a kind of they admire it as a sacred river. So they have the admiration about that, to take care of the water. Although it is a very, now with a huge population, things are being polluted very rapidly. Okay, so that's where, some of those things as a little boy I was watching, I was, having fun with all this and saw this, got those into me and, developed some of those passions. But then as I grew up gradually, I see many of this unplanned development going on around, right? On the agriculture, I see, even in our locality, many of these excess fertilizers things and water are being polluted with the lack of planning in terms of there are some of this with the development efforts from the World Bank or someone, without any proper environmental impact assessment. They just built a road or a sluice gate or somewhere without enough assessment. And then what that happened created is, they created the waterlogging condition in that. So they tried to make it better, but they made it worse, right? So some sort of those kind of lack of planning there, and deforestation, air pollution, and lack of the awareness about the waste and waste management and the recycling was big issues. And certainly, when I gradually learned about this sea level rise and this climate change impacts that this region would be having, that kind of triggered my awareness a lot more and interest about environment and natural resources a lot more gradually. And another two other key things. This is the shipbreaking year. How many of you have heard of shipbreaking? Few, okay, 3-4 of you. So, average ship years, these commercial ships, they get like 25 to 30 years of life cycle, right? Lifetime. After that, they just are decommissioned and they go to some of these countries to dismantle this and to recycle these metals and kind of break the whole ship, okay? And what happened is, so India, Bangladesh, China, and Pakistan, big market for shipbreaking. So this in Bangladesh happened actually within 5 miles of my household, my parents' household. And I saw it is kind of growing up, that industry, huge pollution, and lots of, in the engine room and the insulations, asbestos, chemicals, it's kind of, and then the way these people are handling these metals, very, very risky, lots of fatality, and very cheap labor. And so it was a whole mess. And this land, as you can see, these things are huge, huge pollution out there, and by the ocean. So it is with a good intention, but with the cheap things, and then without any precaution, lots of pollution going on there. So that kind of struck me in a way. And another thing, happened in my backyard with the energy aspects was that the natural gas exploration, and there was a gas plant just within a mile of my household. And I see, some of the, so this was in the shore, offshore, but they have a kind of land-based plant after dragging those in here, they will just process that in my, near to my home. So I saw that this kind of burning going on 24/7, just, to release those things. So these things kind of, as a boy, kind of, struck me, and developed that awareness and passion about to pursue my career more on the, environmental aspects and the natural resource aspects. Okay, so in terms of the various challenges that I faced, growing up and transitioning from there to here is, it was a roller coaster ride, I would say. So it was not an easy path, and growing up in a developing country's perspectives with very much limited resources, lack of information, and getting access to the information was very hard. And country like Bangladesh, so more than 90% people in Bangladesh is more affiliated with the Islam, the Muslim, and the rest of, about 10% is like Hindu, Buddhist, and Christian. So that rest of that, so I am within that 10%. So I was born with a Hindu family. So being a religious minority, suddenly, even within the Bangladesh is a native country, but I faced many of those, discrimination, many of these problems as I growing up, and suddenly, faced many of these, many situations I faced that, I'm a lonely in a big crowd, right? Although I have a good friends, and then similar case, I mean, these things continue. Here I'm minority too, right? Sometimes I still, try to get my feet, in this crowd, but so I try my best to, to kind of make me situated here. Okay, so after my completion of my forestry degree in college in Bangladesh, through that, following that passion, then I worked for Bangladesh Forest Department and some NGO on the environmental NGOs, and worked on some of these issues. Then I got a scholarship. It was very hard, very competitive, but I managed it to get from here to here. So Australian National University, I did my master's in environmental management and development. So that kind of opened the door for me. Okay, so, and I kind of saw myself in these perspectives, and then so after completion of my 2 years degree there, I went back to Bangladesh, and then I tried to work on in an environmental NGOs, in an environmental consultancy firm, and worked on there. And then there are some of this, many other issues with the certainly the discrimination and getting into the right place. Although you are well qualified because of you are from certain groups, so it is not easy to get into the right job always. Okay, so anyway, then I, from there I came to US in the Penn State. Then I got my PhD in Penn State on the forest resources, but focused more on the human aspects of this. The natural resources. And then after completion of my degree, I went to Washington State University in Seattle. So there I worked as an extension faculty on the bioenergy related projects, working on that as an extension faculty. And from there to here now, okay, last 3 years working on this. So it's a brief kind of roller coaster thing that I've been talking about, right? So different places, lots of adjustments, as I know, mentioning, Noe was mentioning, like, yeah, you would see if you are, when you go out of that shell, it is hard. It is hard. Lots of adjustments, but, here I am. Okay, so that's a little story, how I got inspired and all these aspects. Now let me just talk about a little bit about this importance of this diversity. Why you should care about this in the natural resource field, why I care about this. And some of these things I tend to talk in my class as well, and on this, because I think it is very important. And as Noe was mentioning, so about all this, we should learn from the nature, right? And we should know that all these diverse kind of components of the nature make this art very beautiful and working, right? The ecosystems doesn't, so it is none of these species, plants or animal species, are negligible. Everyone has their own role, even the ants, right? So we all, in the nature, they all make it, happen because playing their role in their own way, right? So similar thing in terms of the people perspectives, right? So although we differ in many of these characteristics, right? But we can all bring that perspectives, our own perspectives into, and to make this society better, to make this, whichever field we work on, we can make this society better if we play all of our role, learning from that nature, how they're making it beautiful, right? So that's my take on this. So, and we could differ in many of these, right? But we can still, although we can differ, but still we can bring those perspectives and make to make our decisions, better and innovative. Okay, so this things I tend to show, and I do a little activity sometimes, but I think I'll not just straight go for this. So this is the kind of analogy for some of these things are visible that you can, and many of these things are very invisible, right? That we differ in each other, or we just can't tell once we see anybody, right? So, but ironically, sometimes we treat people based on only this: what we see, what we hear, and how they dressed, right? So, and stereotyping, but they might have this big chunk of this underneath what they are made up of, and we just neglect this part. So that's something we have to be aware of. We have to, judge a person, whether from other race or other color or other ability or other age, or other sexual orientation. We have to understand that person before we judge them based on only few characteristics. Okay. So the other thing, why it is important, the diversity in the natural resource field. Few things. One is that this climate change is happening, and in the natural resource field would be, very much vulnerable with this, right? And we need this diverse kind of, innovative ideas and diverse opinions how to cope with these things, right? And the other thing is, it is not only the natural things, the changing demographics in the country, right? What I mean with this is the population clock, it is clicking. Let me see if it is coming here, otherwise, okay. No, okay, maybe it should. Okay. How to make it visible? I don't know. So maybe. Rob, can you just help me out? Is there a way to go for the display here? Yeah, this one should go there. So how to show that? Is there any?
Just drag it over.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. So here it is. So a few things is, what? Okay. So this clock is moving. We are 7 billion plus. And in the U.S. we have 325 million people already, right? So these things are changing, and then as you see, every minute we are adding 4 people in the country, right? And these are the kind of breakdown. So this clock is moving there, and then the other thing is this one. So if you start from 1950, here you see. So starting from 1950, hopefully it works. Okay. Sorry. Just bear with me, please, here. It should be interactive, but for some reason it is not playing here, right? Okay, here. So 55. Okay, so I should just select that 2060. Okay, here you go. So this is how we are heading from 1955 to. So what do you see?
A larger elderly population.
Right. So the population, what used to be before, like younger population used to be a lot more, and elderly population was. So now, more and more people, elderly people would be into the group, the proportion wise, right? So we have to be ready, and they will be requiring more of this. They'll be going to the national park, or they'll be using many of these resources, natural resources. So we have to serve those population. So this dynamics is changing, right? And the other dynamics is changing is. Here. So from here to here, so the Hispanic population would be the largest minority, right? Almost 1/3, right? 31%. And The Asian would be 8% and other 6% and black 13%. So altogether it would be more than 50%, 57%. So by 2060, so that's where we're heading as a combination, right? So what does that mean for natural resources? It means we have to be ready for this, to serve this diverse population. And we need those natural resource professionals who will be, able to serve those, this changing demography in the country, right? If we just rely on this only a homogeneous population, but 1/3 of this population, would be neglected probably. So we need those, this is called Next America by the Pew Research. So you may want to check that out. Okay, so considering that, we need this, natural resource programs that would be respectful and responsive and that serve these diverse citizens, right? We just cannot, just focus on one groups. We need to kind of take care of all these different diverse citizens. So to do that, we need diverse workforce in the natural resource professionals who will be able to connect and serve all this diverse population. Otherwise, we'll be failing as a natural resource professional and in the field. So that's why I try to, I think we all should kind of, be proactive on this. Otherwise, we'll be failing in terms of, serving these citizens. And some of these agencies, they are already recruiting, and Fish and Wildlife has a nice video. I think we may not have much time to show that, but I would rather answer some of the questions. And so they are recruiting many of these agencies are now being, recruiting more of these diverse kind of, professionals. They are emphasizing it. So it is in the system now. So realizing that, they need to kind of serve these diverse citizens, they need to be prepared. And as an institution in the natural resource field, we should also prepare those future professionals who can serve these diverse citizens and fulfill their demand in the different agencies. And at UWSP, especially in the CNR, me with some of the colleagues, we are trying to kind of, trying to include this and teach about these topics into the, different introductory courses, because many of our students sometimes come from the rural settings. They never saw a person of color probably in their high school, right? So it is hard to connect why it is important, why should I care about this, right? So this is for your students' own sake, that to connect better with to make them as a competent professional. I think it is important to be aware and to get ready for that. And we also kind of tend to arrange some brown bag series on the different speakers from the different background, similar kind of this kind of format, but in a more like a lunch hour kind of things. But I think it could be replicated in different other colleges and as well. And certainly we kind of encourage many of these international programs and exchanges, student exchanges. That way our students can explore and see many other countries' perspectives, and also interact and see how they feel when they go out of their own shell, right? So some of these things we are trying, and I still, this is a kind of one thing about the brown bag seminar we did, I think last year or so. What we can do more is basically just pointing to these values, beliefs. We need to kind of recognize and take advantage of this different belief system, different values that we all have, the differences that we have. We can take advantages of our differences to make our decisions stronger, to make us much more competent to serve this diverse population, to serve this changing climate and natural resources. So, and also we need to create this into our employment and institutions as well, because we need to set that organizational and institutional goal and culture where all these behavior attitudes and everything will be changed and set in the whatever system we are in, whatever agencies we are in, and whichever professionals we are. We need that organizational culture setting where we can interact more, and that would enable us to be much more effective, much more competent as professionals. And I will end with this quote here, and I always agree with this. So it takes actually a few folks just to lead the society, and that's what happens all the time. So just don't be scared of, if you're the right person, feel free, to follow your instinct. If you think that you're the leader, just move ahead and make that change happen and make the society better. And that's what we all can do with our own differences, own values, combining them together, we all can be much more stronger. Thank you very much. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll be happy to answer. Yes, please.
So you talked a bit about how people in Bangladesh, the value that they place on community, and how it's much different, magnitude is much different than the value that we place on community here in the U.S. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about how you have seen community values relating to valuing the environment. If you've seen connections, or if that a relationship there at all. Am I asking this clearly?
So you're asking, so in U.S. perspective, so that kind of social connections, will that be better for how that could be better for the environmental stewardships, or?
If that's what it is, yeah, or if you've seen a relationship between community values and.
Oh yes, certainly. I mean, when we were talking about the other day, few of other folks who were in a climate change forum, we have been talking about some of these issues. Certainly, say climate change, this impacts or vulnerability about the community that we are thinking of, right? My neighbors in next door, they may not be caring about these things, right? And so if you as a community, right, if you can relay this information, and as a community, if you can be better prepared, right, if you have that connections a lot, so you can help with sharing the resources, sharing the information, sharing the planning process as a community, and being a much more resilient community if you have that social network, a stronger network. And if you, but rather than depending on my own car, I can burn, because I have that ability, I can burn as much as oil as possible. And then, so all these cumulative things are, triggering this, more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, right? So, but if we can still think back, reconnect with our communities, we could be much more happier as a community rather than only individuals stuck in one home. So, that's my perspective. So growing up in a kind of more community setting, I just don't feel comfortable sometimes just being in my own home always. I know that's the values and belief or the comfort zone. Maybe many of you who grew up in that way, probably you feel much more comfortable in that way to maintain that privacy, to maintain your own things, but that's not me. So that's maybe you may need to rethink or see how you can kind of reinvent the wheel there probably. Any other questions, please? Yes.
You said when you were in elementary school, you sometimes would have like 2 hours of more formal instruction, and that helped you make an appreciation for natural resources. Do you think some sort of system like that in America would be helpful to a point, or?
It's hard to kind of probably apply that directly here. And again, socio-economic, cultural perspectives are different, right? Certainly, I'm fortunate to grow up in that system in a way that, I got a lot more time to connect with the nature, the informal education, that what I got from the nature, and some of these things were risky. Now I feel, I shouldn't have climbed up all this big tree without any gear or anything, right? But we did, and we were fine. And I didn't see any of my friends were in trouble. They were all, all good, right? So, but but I still feel, I have two boys, 7 and 10, first grader and fifth grader. I feel, I mean, when seeing them, whole day in the school, I just don't feel good, that, this, they need more time to play outside and to kind of somehow, and we are all communities kids, we are together. We explored, we learned from each other, we explored different things, we were innovative with the nature. We jumped over the canal, we fell on the water, we dried up, and we tried all these things. We learned, oh, this is not good, this is good, this is doable, this is not doable. And community watched us. We had guardian all around in the community. So it is not only my kids I'm watching, nobody else. It is not that. So it was a quite different context. So yeah, so we need to develop that community connections before probably, otherwise parents wouldn't take, if you have to watch the rest of the times, that's the problem here, right? So, but we had that setting. That's why I'm saying it's a different socioeconomic or economic perspectives. Yes, please.
With all your experience with like traveling and your education, what is the most disconcerting or alarming thing you see in the realm of like natural resource? And then what is the most positive, like, so good and bad news?
Okay, so you mean my concern or what I see as I learn?
Yeah, overall general concerns presently.
Okay.
Pressing issues.
Oh, okay, good. I feel the most concerning things for me is that like this, the pollution and lack of awareness of the general people about how we are polluting this, how we are emitting all this carbon into the atmosphere, how we are polluting the water and air, and how big, especially in the developed countries' perspectives, how much waste we produce, and how we are not aware of many of those things. We try to neglect many of these things. I think it is we need lot more awareness in terms of dealing with this. We just can't sustain in this way. So I feel that's kind of concerning. And with the climate change impacts, and we'll be much more vulnerable if we are not prepared, and if we don't have much more aware communities around. So I think we need to do a lot more environmental education and awareness, or we need to be proactive in terms of disseminating this information to the communities where we are in, and we could be the leader for that particular community too, because only individual effort alone may not be fruitful in that regard. If you do only your part in terms of reducing this, we need this community effort. We need this much more orchestrated kind of effort to kind of get these things done. And positive aspects, I would say we have a lot more tracking of this data on this kind of pollutions, and we can track many of these that we didn't have before. And so I see, and there are many more scientific evidences coming up to deal with some of these issues. And technology is a big part to handle many of these natural resource issues now, how we can apply many of these to. So, but besides those, I think, still is the people who need to act. It's the people who, need to be aware of this to make our environment safer, to manage our natural resources in a better way, in a sustainable way. If nature is gone, we'll be gone. And because we are that one component of those, like many other components of that nature I showed, and Noe showed, we are just tiny of that component. Yes, we have human ingenuity, and that's what we are we think we are the best. But what time is skull, as and if we don't act right, yeah, we'll be in trouble. Any other questions? Yeah, Chris, please.
Just kind of traveling around, to your point, what you're just talking about, it seems like we've solved all these problems. Pollution, I put my garbage out on Tuesday mornings, it's picked up. I flush the toilet, that's gone. It seems like we're pretty good, or from the perspective of people that don't know get my point is, how do you educate someone that doesn't think there's a problem?
So I think that's where we need this. Now that's what I was mentioning. Maybe we have much more scientific data now and recorded data now. How much waste we produce as a nation and per household, and how many of this could be recyclable, compostable, could be recyclable. So many of these things are, and how much of this pollution goes into the groundwater, goes into the atmosphere. We have those data now. And I think that's the kind of a communication piece, environmental communication piece, and we are making advances and technologically and the information-wise, data-driven this communication. So those efforts, I think, need to be kind of a much more, efficient way. We need to deliver those in a way, technologically. Now smartphone is a good device. Everybody has one. So if we can, find out the way to communicate those, to deliver those concrete database information, how that individual effort could change this environment, and that could help. But I feel personally, as I mentioned before, it would probably need much more proactive effort as a community. If you still deliver this by the newspaper, by the technology, if no one reads it, then it's not going to happen. So you need in local initiatives and that momentum going and increase it toward this, region, local, state, and nation. So I think it needs to be, from the, community. So that's how probably we can spread it more. And we need some local leaders. Like I'm very much optimistic when you talk about the optimism. I see more and more our students, when I see their optimism about the natural resources, how they care about it, how passionate they are about it, I see positive things there, and that we'll be probably heading in the right direction. But we need some of those, much more, well-educated, knowledgeable, leaders, natural resource professionals, who will be kind of, able to kind of disseminate this in all these different aspects. Yes.
Are people from coastal Bangladesh more motivated to address climate change, considering all the land that will be lost?
Yes. So that's my master's research. I focused on sea level rise impacts and look into more on the policy aspects of how capable or adaptive our country policies are in terms of addressing these climate change issues. People, although still not many parts of the country, people are not highly educated, but they get it. They see these calamities happening much more frequently. They see these cyclones happening much more frequently, much more intense cyclones that they never saw before. And this is, this extreme drought condition that they didn't see before. So, and they kind of, get it. And most of these, people are supportive of this, to take actions right now, and because they feel that they are much more vulnerable there, and they feel it, and they see it. And, but on the other hand, I mean, we are the kind of one of the most carbon emitting countries, and we still, 1/3 of the people, they think climate change is not happening still, right? So, and we are not, being proactive as a nation. We just, the last time in the Paris Agreement we kind of agreed, but it took a long time to get us to that Paris Agreement. And now we are trying to even, come back from that. So as a nation, I think that's, our future is, environment and natural resource professionals. You need to think of, how to deal with these problems and how to make that, policies and global cooperation, so that, it is a justice, climate justice issue. I mean, we are emitting, and it is the one system planet that we are living in. Whatever I emit, it is going to, or pollute, it is gonna go the other part of the country, world anyway. So, and if with my actions, if someone is becoming much more vulnerable, right, is that fair? And how much they are emitting, very negligible. So the irony is, most people who are most vulnerable for this climate change impacts and in a risky situations, countries and people who are emitting a lot less, very negligible, right? People who are emitting lot more, countries who are emitting a lot more, they're in a better shape compared to those in terms of the this preparation. But they will be the ones who are more vulnerable, and they don't have the resources, capacities, funding to tackle with this, right? And so that's the kind of ethics issues, climate justice issues, fairness issues. And if we are thinking of as a human society, if we think that Homo sapiens, we need to take care of each other. We need to be fair with each other. Yes, we don't like to compromise in a better living here, but think about that, kids in the slum in Bangladesh or India, right? Very rarely, they are getting even their food. Forget about the education, health, and other things, right? Is that fair? Is that ethical, right? So, and in many cases, many of these developed nations, we sometimes even grab many of those resources from these resourceful areas, and that's why some of these regions are, now lacking these resources, right? And this Asian region in Indian subcontinent used to be very much resourceful with the natural resources, all this mining and all these things, forests and everything, right? And so at some point, colonialism and all this, we grabbed many of these resources, right? And now we are emitting more and making that harm to the other part of the world who don't, have that ability to cope with, and they are becoming much more vulnerable with this. So, yeah, it is that I think equality and fairness issues, and we have to act.
Any final questions? Well, please join me in thanking Shiba again.
Thank you. Thank you.